Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling really one of the most complex figures in modern history, Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria.
Absolutely. A name everyone knows, but the story is, well, it's a lot.
It really is. We've got biographies, documentaries, even accounts from people who knew him. And our goal today is to figure out how this one man, described famously as an assassin, a drug trafficker, a terrorist, but he was my friend, how he got so powerful.
Right. And cultivated that whole Robin Hood image while waging war on his own country. It's quite the mix.
It is. And the scale of his operation, just mind-boggling.
Oh, completely. At his peak, estimates say he controlled something like 80% of the world's cocaine. 80%.
And funneling, what, 15 tons a day into the U.S.?
15 tons daily. The money involved, up to $420 million.
A week. Just say that again. $420 million weekly.
His estimated net worth hit $30 billion, which today, that's closer to $59 billion.
Wow.
Forbes had him on their billionaires list for 7 straight years. In '89, he was ranked the 7th richest man in the world.
So this wasn't just, a drug dealer. This was like a corporation, almost a shadow state.
Exactly. Operating on an almost national scale, but entirely illicit.
So the big question is, how did he get there? From, well, apparently pretty humble beginnings.
Yeah, that's what's so striking. He was born in Rio Negro, Colombia in 1949. His mom was a school teacher, dad a farmer. Pretty ordinary start.
But ambitious, right? I read he dreamed of being president.
He did. But his path took a different turn. Started with petty crime. Stealing tombstones, believe it or not.
Tombstone.
Yeah, sending off the names, reselling them. Then fake diplomas, car theft, smuggling. He got involved in the Marlboro Wars, too.
Which were about cigarette smuggling.
Exactly. Violent disputes over those routes. So he was learning the ropes of illicit trade early on. A brutal education, really.
And jail didn't slow him down. I heard his first stint was actually helpful.
Bizarrely, yes. Lalladera Jail. Someone described it as a positive life experience for him. Sounds strange, but that's supposedly where he learned about the bigger leagues, kidnapping, drug trafficking.
Like a criminal finishing school.
Sort of, yeah. And by the mid-'70s, he made his move, took control of Medellin's cocaine scene after a rival, Fabio Restrepo, was murdered.
Widely believed to be Escobar's doing.
That's the general consensus, yes. And Colombia's location was just perfect for him.
Right between the coca growers in Peru and Bolivia and the huge U.S. market.
Precisely. And Escobar, he was innovative. He took risks, hiding coke in airplane tires, using that private island in the Bahamas.
Norman's Cay.
That's the one. Became a massive smuggling hub. At its height, maybe 300 kilos a day coming through there.
Yeah.
He wasn't just a thug. He was a logistical, a criminal mastermind.
And he had that infamous policy, plata o plomo.
Silver or lead, yeah. Basically, take the bribe or take a bullet.
And that worked.
Incredibly effectively.
Right.
It terrified officials, undermined the state, and cemented his control through sheer fear.
Which obviously fueled his wealth even more. Let's talk about that lifestyle, because the numbers are just insane.
They really are. That $420 million a week figure, it led to that $30 billion net worth. Being on the Forbes list wasn't just vanity. It reflected a genuine, staggering fortune.
And they had so much cash they couldn't even count it.
Right. They weighed it. Apparently, he spent something like $2,500 a month just on rubber bands to bundle the bills.
$2,500 on rubber bands.
It highlights a weird problem, right? How do you even manage that much illicit cash? You can't just deposit it.
So much that, didn't some of it get eaten by rats?
Yeah, reports say up to 10% of the stored cash was lost to rats or damp because he literally couldn't launder it fast enough. Too much money was actually a problem.
A problem most people wouldn't mind having, I guess. But the logistics.
Yeah.
Wow, he had a Learjet just for cash.
Solely for flying cash. Plus 15 other planes, 6 helicopters, even 2 submarines for smuggling.
Submarines.
But the crown jewel was Hacienda Naples, his main estate.
That's the one with the zoo.
And everything else, 7,000 acres. Pools, airstrips, stables, soccer field, tennis courts, go-kart track, bullfighting arena. A bullfighting arena.
Yep. Artificial lakes, vintage cars, those famous life-size dinosaur statues
Yeah.
in the zoo. Yeah. 200 animals, zebras, hippos, giraffes, elephants, lions, many smuggled in.
It's like a Bond villain's lair, but real.
And the entrance had a plane mounted above it, right?
Yeah, a replica of the Piper Cub that supposedly carried his first coke load to the U.S., a monument to his own criminal beginnings.
He also had property in Miami, a mansion on the beach, and this secret place on La Isla Grande. 300 rooms, supposedly gold shower heads, just pure excess.
It's almost impossible to picture. Was it all just ego, or did this display serve some purpose?
That's a good question. I mean, ego was definitely part of it, but it also ties into his other persona, the Pizer Robin Hood.
Right, the benefactor. How did he manage that duality?
Very deliberately, he poured millions into charity. Built housing like the Barrio Escobar.
That was the one built on a trash dump, right? For families living in shacks.
Exactly. 1,000 homes there. He built soccer fields, parks, paved roads, churches, hospitals, mostly in Medellin. Food programs, too, I read.
Yeah.
And reforestation.
Yep. And he'd literally hand out cash in town squares, sometimes dressed as Santa Claus, giving gifts to kids.
Wow.
So that Robin Hood nickname stuck. And it brought him immense loyalty, especially among the poor in Medellin. In some areas, he was the most popular guy around.
A masterclass in buying goodwill, even while running a deadly empire.
And that popularity fueled his next ambition, politics.
He actually got elected.
He did. In 1982, elected as an alternate member of Colombia's Congress, which was huge for him.
Why? What did that give him?
Parliamentary immunity, a diplomatic passport, tools he immediately used to fight extradition efforts, mainly to the U.S.
But that didn't last long.
No. The Justice Minister, Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, wasn't having it. He publicly exposed Escobar's criminal ties.
And Escobar got kicked out of the party.
Yep, expelled from the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
And that's when things took a much darker turn.
His response wasn't exactly subtle, was it?
Not at all. Lara Bonilla was assassinated in 1984. That really marked the shift from gangster to, well, narco-terrorist.
He went to war with the state.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Especially the judiciary. Over 30 judges were killed on his orders. It was about eliminating anyone who stood in his way, particularly regarding extradition.
And the Palace of Justice siege in '85, was he involved in that?
He implicitly supported it and allegedly paid the M19 guerrillas, that was a left-wing group, $1 million for the attack.
What was the goal there?
Chaos, intimidation, and critically destroying Supreme Court records, including evidence against him. 11 justices were killed in that siege. It was a horrifying attack on the rule of law itself.
Just devastating, and the violence kept escalating.
Oh, absolutely. A reign of terror. He ordered the assassination of Luis Carlos Galán, a presidential candidate, in 1989.
And the Avianca bombing.
November 1989. Avianca Flight 203. He thought another presidential candidate, Cesar Gaviria Trujillo, was on board.
Wait, wasn't?
No, Gaviria missed the flight. But everyone else, 107 people on the plane, plus 3 on the ground, all killed. That act, that indiscriminate slaughter, really brought the U.S. fully into the fight against him.
And just days later, another massive bombing.
9 days later, the DAS building in Bogota, Colombia's security agency, a huge truck bomb, killed 57 people, injured over 2,200.
Unbelievable. And he was targeting police, too, offering bounties.
Yeah, reportedly offering about $700 in today's money for each officer killed. An estimated 600 police officers were assassinated because of that.
Just pure terror. Medellin must have been hell on earth.
It became one of the most violent cities globally. In 1991 alone, over 7,200 murders there. The whole country was suffering insane levels of violence, 25,000, maybe 27,000 violent deaths a year nationally, largely fueled by the drug war Escobar was waging.
And this brutality, it wasn't just aimed outwards, was it? He turned on his own people, too.
Absolutely. The paranoia was extreme. He supposedly had a waiter drowned in a pool for stealing silverware. He executed close allies, like Moncada and Galeano, because he suspected them of stealing from him.
And that story about the forced abortion.
Chilling, isn't it? Reportedly forced a former lover. Some think it was Wendy Chavarriaga Hill, who he later had killed anyway. Forced her to have an abortion by a vet, no anesthetic, because she got pregnant without his okay.
That level of cruelty, it must have cost him support even within his own ranks.
It did. Actions like that, executing allies, it created enemies. Many former associates turned on him, forming vigilante groups.
Los Pepe.
Los Pepes, exactly. People persecuted by Pablo Escobar. And they were funded, interestingly, by the rival Cali cartel.
Yep.
So his own ruthlessness helped create the forces that hunted him down.
Which leads us to his eventual downfall. But first, there was La Catedral.
His prison.
Ah, yes, La Catedral. After all that terror, he somehow negotiated a surrender in 1991. Deal was he'd go to a prison, but...
He got to build it himself.
Pretty much, and prison is hardly the word. It was more like a fortress/country club.
What did it have? A soccer field.
Soccer field, discotheque, bar, jacuzzi, even a waterfall. Plus, a fully equipped office with phones, fax machines, radio transmitters. He ran his empire from inside. He was hosting parties there with celebrities.
Oh, yeah. Drug-fueled parties, booze, friends, family, prostitutes. Apparently some celebrities, too. It was his own little kingdom, guarded by his men, with the army technically outside but keeping their distance.
How could the government let that happen?
He was a hugely controversial deal, driven by a desire to stop the bombings and killings. But eventually, the sheer audacity of him continuing his crimes from jail became too much.
So they tried to move him.
In July 1992, yes, they planned to transfer him to a proper military base. But Escobar found out.
And he just walked out.
Basically, he built it with escape routes in mind. There was a false wall, a tunnel. He and his men just slipped away into the night. A final humiliation for the government.
And that kicked off the final manhunt.
A massive one. 16 months, Colombian forces, the U.S. DEA, Navy SEALs reportedly involved, and Los Pepes hunting him relentlessly too.
He must have been under incredible pressure.
Constantly moving, hiding in jungles, safe houses. Reports say he was getting exhausted, paranoid, physically worn down. The billionaire kingpin reduced to living like a fugitive.
And what finally led them to him, it was his family, right?
Ironically, yes.
Yeah.
For all his monstrosity, he seemed to genuinely love his family. He was desperate to stay in touch. He made a phone call to his son, Juan Pablo.
And they traced the call.
U.S. and Colombian intelligence were monitoring. They triangulated his position to a middle-class house in Medellin.
That was it.
On December 2nd, 1993, the day after his 44th birthday, Colombian police stormed the house. A firefight broke out. Escobar and his bodyguard tried to escape across the rooftops.
And they were shot.
Shot down on the roof. There's still some debate, though. The official story is police killed him. But his family, especially his brother Roberto, insists he shot himself in the ear.
Which he'd supposedly vowed to do if cornered.
Exactly. To avoid capture or extradition. So maybe police bullets, maybe suicide. Either way, his reign ended right there on that rooftop.
What was the reaction in Colombia? Relief. Celebration.
All of that, but also something else. His funeral was massive. Over 25,000 people turned up.
25,000 for him.
Yeah, a mix of the genuinely poor people he'd helped, the curious, and maybe those relieved he was gone, but still seeing him as a symbol of defiance. It showed just how divided and conflicted people were about him.
What happened to everything he left behind? The family, the empire, the properties.
The family fled Colombia pretty quickly, changed names, ended up in Argentina eventually. They faced money troubles, even money laundering charges later on. His son, Juan Pablo, now calls himself Sebastian Mariquin and has written books about it all.
And Hacienda Nápoles, the zoo and dinosaurs.
That became a theme park, bizarrely enough. But the hippos, they couldn't easily move them, so they were left behind.
And they bred.
Oh, yeah. There are over 60 now, maybe more. They become a huge invasive species problem in the local river ecosystem. A very strange legacy of his excess.
And La Catedral, the luxury prison.
It was looted and fell into ruin for years. But now, it's an old folks' home run by Benedictine monks. Quite the turnaround.
Wow. From Escobar's party palace to a monastery retirement home, what about all the hidden money? Is that still out there?
Seems like it. His Miami mansion was torn down a few years ago. They found hidden safes. One got stolen before they could open it. Who knows what was in the other? And people are still finding buried caches. That farmer in 2015
found $600 million.
$600 million, yeah, supposedly buried in plastic barrels on his land. Makes you wonder how much more is still hidden out there. Escobar took those secrets to his grave.
So looking back at it all, the brutality, the terror, thousands killed, maybe 4,000, 5,000 directly linked to his cartel. Yet he remains this almost mythical figure.
He does. It's this black story for Colombia, you know? It shaped perceptions of the entire country for decades. And yet popular culture TV shows, movies can't get enough of him.
So what do you think that tells us, this enduring fascination with someone so contradictory?
That's the final thought, isn't it? What does our fascination with Escobar say about us? About our relationship with power, with extreme wealth, with that blurred line between, well, good and evil, or maybe just different kinds of evil.
Yeah, why are we so drawn to these figures who embody such intense contradictions, the benefactor and the bomber in one person?
Maybe it forces us to confront uncomfortable things about ambition, about society, about how easily those lines can blur. Perhaps the most compelling stories are always found right there in that messy, dangerous intersection.